Artifacts are super rare items in D&D, so when they eventually come up in your game, you want to do it right. That's why when the Sword of Kas came up in my Spelljammer home game, I wanted to make it as impactful as it could be, and that is when I fell upon the incredible potential in the somewhat overlooked portion of magical artifacts, the beneficial and detrimental properties. So let's look at what they are, my experience with them, and how I think we can bring more story, drama, and consequence with them to our table that equals the magnitude of what a world-building or world-altering artifact should bring. If you've been playing D&D for some time, you may have noticed that the artifact rarity of Dungeons & Dragons magic items, the rarest of all items, have the unique property called random properties. Not every artifact has random properties, but every magic item that has random properties is an artifact, kind of like a square and a rectangle situation. Broken up into 4 categories, you will find minor beneficial properties, major beneficial properties, minor detrimental properties, and major detrimental properties. So basically a good thing, a very good thing, a bad thing, and a very bad thing. You will see it in items like the Book of Vile Darkness, the Eye and Hand of Vecna, or the Orb of Dragonkind. In the respect of the Book of Vile Darkness, it gives you 3 good things, 1 very good thing, 3 bad things, and 2 very bad things. But these features are kind of an add-on, not included in the stat block itself, and left for you to roll on random tables to determine the bonus effects and detriments. So to me, who has never really been a fan of random tables, it is easy to overlook these or not really consider them when looking at the item. But let's look at the random property options it gives found in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Under the minor beneficial properties, you will find things like gain proficiency in a skill, gaining immunity to some conditions, gaining resistances, AC bonuses, or the ability to cast low-level spells. For major beneficial properties, you will find ability score increases, regeneration, bonus to your damage or speed, immunity to other conditions, and access to higher-level spells. Then going to the bad stuff, under minor detrimental properties, we find disadvantage on certain saving throws, vulnerabilities to damage, afflicting conditions under certain situations, some character visual changes, an aura of corruption that manifests in a sour stench, reducing value in items, destroying holy water, extinguishing flames, killing vegetation, or enraging beasts. Let alone being alone forever if you roll an 86. Then finally, we have major detrimental properties, which keeps you from attuning to anything else, reducing ability scores, taking actual damage, even postponing all the benefits of the artifact, getting chased by a CR 23 Empyrean, becoming a white when you die, keeping you from using potions or scrolls, enraging certain types of creatures against you, damage vulnerability, sending a bounty hunter death slod after you, or can't regain hit points at all. A heck of a lot. Now that's a lot to unpack, but you will find both very general properties that are non-specific, and then find very specific, maybe too specific properties that may not apply well to every artifact. And therein lies my issue with these roll tables. Let's say that your party gets the Orb of Dragonkind, an artifact of the ages that was created to lure the most powerful dragons to destruction when the world was fated to be destroyed by them. Somehow, this legendary orb found its way into the hands of your party. Whoever attunes to it gets a number of high-level spells and the ability to call dragons with the already built-in detriment of being charmed by the item to do Tiamat's will. Then you roll on the properties table that we mentioned. You get 2 beneficial properties, so let's say you roll a 72 and a 45, and your DM decides to give you the Dragon's Breath spell and then resistance against fire. Begs the question, why only fire when there are 4 other dragon damage types, but pretty good so far. Then you get both a minor and a major detrimental property. You roll a 77 for a minor property and a 91 for a major property. So you destroy holy water within 10 feet of you? That's a weird thing to have for an artifact of dragons, and no relation to religion or undeath. And then Death Slod is imprisoned and has a chance to escape and attack you? Why a Death Slod? Wouldn't it make more sense if a certain dragon is imprisoned in it, or hunts you down to try to steal the item before you can use it against them? Now, you probably still could find a reason for the Death Slod. It's probably in service to a dragon of some sort, but some roles are just not going to fit as well as others. So if the goal is to make artifacts have an appropriate impact for your campaigns, I have a few suggestions. But first, maybe a setting to put them in. Introducing the sponsor of today's video, Hedge Maze of the Crescent Queen, a whimsical fae-themed adventure where you are thrown into an endless maze as punishment for angering the daughter of a dead moon god. Find a way out battling fae monsters, trading in fairy markets, and learning to use wacky magic items, all before your memory slowly deteriorates as fae magic tends to do. I personally got to play a skunk that fell through a fae portal and became half human, and battled the maze's randomness with fart sprays and gas clouds. I was impressed not only with the passion of the creators over at Latecomer Games, but also the sandboxy nature of the maze itself, allowing for tons of replayability. You can check out the game I played in with other content creators, as well as a second game with other creators to show just how different each adventure can be. The Kickstarter is live as of today, and you can get the entire PDF for just $10. With all the other offerings being just a few dollars more, there really isn't a reason not to back the adventure yourself, unless you're too scared to anger a fae moon goddess. But who knows, maybe there is an artifact or two to reward those that lean into the silliness. Speaking of, let's get back to making them great. If we are going to make artifacts memorable and meaningful in your game, there is a few things we can do. After all, they are so rare that one may only come up once your entire campaign. You will want to do it right. For this example, we will look at the Sword of Kas, which came up in my Spelljammer campaign. This will be spoilers for any of you watching the live play I do with my friends, fair warning, as well as some canon history and lore surrounding Vecna. In short, the Sword of Kas is the sword that the powerful vampire Kas used to betray Vecna and cut off his hand and his eye, who then later imprisoned his own sentience within the sword. My party learned about the sword and eventually was able to obtain it. If you are interested in watching the campaign, it is available for all my wonderful supporting Patreon members, linked in the description below. We are actually in the last arc of the campaign, and we are very excited. But in using an artifact like the Sword of Kas, the first thing you should do is foreshadowing. Not foreshadowing the artifact itself and its rarity being of epic proportions, you should already have that down, but also foreshadowing the random nature of its power. For example, my players learned that the Sword of Kas was actually in the possession of a human named Narek, which is actually canonically the name of Kas's son, though this human turned out to be hundreds of years old and evidently not a vampire. They learned that the Sword of Kas changes its wielder, but never in the same way. The party understood that if they got a hold of it, it would affect them differently than Narek, but still figured in a very vampiric way. This created the expectation of randomness, but also the excitement of how the sword would interact with them personally. Plus, they needed to kill him because he was enacting genocide on the Regaran race, so they knew they had to get it eventually. The second tip is actually give previous wielders of the item some of those properties to foreshadow. While Narek was still not a vampire, he did inherit the anti-aging and vulnerability to radiant damage from the item. This also foreshadowed the possibility of the player getting those attributes, if they rolled them. The ability to never age was, to them, an exciting prospect. The third tip here, and probably most important, is to make your own random properties table. It may sound like a lot of work to some, but chances are you're only going to have to do it once your entire campaign. And again, you want to instill power that is both impactful and makes sense for the player that eventually inherits this power. So I did some research beforehand and went through the properties, changing them as needed. And you don't even need to change everything, but rather use it as a template for your own table. For example, with the minor beneficial properties, I just filled in what made sense. So the proficiency skill of choice would be Stealth, and the spells available would be Bane, Spider Climb, and Vampiric Touch, all themed after vampiric power. I should add that the items that you see that are highlighted is what my own player rolled when he attuned to the sword. For major beneficial properties, I added a few more vampiric spells, like Polymorph, Hold Monster, Soul Cage, and Power Word Pain. But then I also started adding vampiric features, like immunity to necrotic damage, the ability to become mist when they reach 0 hit points, and changing the attack damage bonus to necrotic. When we got to minor detrimental properties, I gave them sunlight sensitivity, and some of the other vampire weaknesses, and severely cut the fluff of other properties that I didn't want and didn't make sense. This gave me more of a streamlined list that gave more likelihood to features that I felt really mattered. I did the same with major detriments and included some other flavorful features like having to take damage or blood to power the sword's other abilities, or gaining long-term madness. But my player just happened to roll a 69, nice, and allowed a chance for Kas to jump from his sword prison into his own body. A sentient weapon fighting for a chance to live again and reenact justice against his former master, which in a climactic moment actually had a battle map within the character's mind where he had to battle for control. Whether he won or not, I guess you'll have to watch. But because I treated the otherwise random properties of the artifact as a powerful role-playing and storytelling tool, I believe the item had so much more of an impact on the campaign at large. And ultimately, that should be the goal of these random properties, not just random other features to tack on to an already powerful item. And for artifacts that do not have random properties, or homebrewed artifacts in your own campaigns, I would consider adding them on. What kind of random storytelling features would you give Igwilv's Cauldron, or even the Ring of Winter? Give me your best ideas in the comments below. But speaking of magic items while in the world of Spelljammer, I have some free items I had that I might as well include in the description below for you for free. Again, you are welcome to support me on Patreon to get exclusive access to all of my live play episodes, as well as my entire collection of PDFs, all for just a few bucks. If you're looking for unique ideas for the new bastions and home bases for your campaign, check out my video on it here. But until next time, go out there and make your worlds a better place. See ya.